Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unboxed. We are continuing our series on building the Black family. And today we're going to talk about one of the most important institutions in the Black community. We're going to talk about the Black church. So stick around as we unbox the power of the Black church. I'm Dr. Robert Davis, family life educator and relationship coach. And welcome to Unboxed, a frank and straightforward conversation about relationships. We're going to talk about family, church, workplace, and all other types of relationships. Join me for the next few moments as we unbox the power and potential of relationships and help you to live your best life. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Robert Davis, and I want to welcome you to Unbox, where we unbox the power and the potential of all relationships. So glad that you've chosen to join us today. Before we get started, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Like, subscribe, and share. And then also check out our description below so that you can see ways that you can join, support, and participate with what Unbox is doing in the community. All right, we're going to talk about the Black church today. This is a very important subject. I'm going to share some statistics with you, and then I'm going to talk about where the greatest power of the Black church lies. Talk about some of the challenges that the Black church is facing, and then where the Black church lies. So and I encourage you to jump right in to share your suggestions, share your ideas and thoughts. Let's have a full conversation. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share with you a new study that was done of 1,231 churches, gave some deep insight into how churches from a 2019 study spend their money. So the study was done in 2019. It showed how over 1,200 churches spend their money. The study was done by the National Study of Congregations Economic Practices, which was published by the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. And it gave several things, and I'm actually going to do something. I'm going to put that link in the right there in the description. So make sure that you look at that. Let me go ahead and add that link in the description, and then you should have it. There you go. We put it everywhere so that you can have it. And I'm going to show you what that link looks like. There's a link right there, but it's also in the description. Okay. Now, why am I starting off talking about finances? Because there are some awesome opportunities, and the strongest institution since the days of slavery. And I was really moved and riveted by the documentary that PB did recently on the Black church. And so there is no denying that the strongest institution in the Black community has been the Black church. And it served a very powerful and significant role in the African-American community during slavery, during Jim Crow, during all of the various struggles. Matter of fact, it's just commonplace that whenever there is a crisis in the African-American community, even today, one of the first places that we look for and one of the first voices that we want to hear from is the African-American church. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have our problems. The African-American church is the place where most people's babies are blessed, children are baptized, couples are married, and loved ones are buried. I mean, the whole span of the life takes place within the African-American church. It has an awesome opportunity. But there are a few things that have held back the African-American church. And one of the things that I often talk about as has held us back, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but I'm just going to share it and move on. The first is that we put too much of an emphasis on the 11 o'clock on Saturday, if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, on Sunday, if you are a Baptist, Kojic, or anything else. We put too much an emphasis on what I refer to as the religious entertainment production. Religious entertainment production. And so a lot of our resources and energy goes into trying to make sure that those 2 hours on Sunday, those 2 hours on Saturday, that they are tight, that the music is tight, that everything is flowing. It's a production. The second thing that really hinders the African-American church is our tie to traditionalism. You know, they say the 7 words of a dying church is, we've never done it that way before. We've never done it that way before, the 7 words of a dying church. And too often, unfortunately, African-American congregations are becoming very traditional. and somewhat afraid to step out and to try new and out of the box things. So I want to talk to you. Let me jump in here for a second and share with you some of the statistics, some of the statistics about how money is spent and where the majority of the money goes, because there is this idea in some individuals' minds that churches spend a lot of their money propping up the pastor, propping up the preacher, and that, preachers are making money hand over fist while these poor old ladies in the church can barely pay their rent and can barely buy food. Let me share this with you. I have served on many ministerial associations and alliances across the country: Charlotte, North Carolina, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Fort Worth, Texas, Alexandria, Louisiana, and now here in Denver, Colorado. And I'm telling you, I want you to hear this very closely. There are some charlatans out there, but the majority of pastors across all denominations are very sincere and committed to providing a service and a ministry to their congregation and to their community. And as one Baptist preacher told me years ago in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, he said, to be honest with you, the first 10 plus years of ministry, I was paying the church to be their pastor. And what does that mean? That means that when you look at how much the church was able to pay him and how much money he turned around and gave back to the church in order to, support materials and supplies, helping young people with their various outreach and ministry activities. By the time the pastor ends up giving so much to the church, they end up losing money. It got so bad in my family when we first started pastoring that my wife said, honey, you are taking so much money from the family budget and putting it into the church that we can't meet our monthly obligations just to live. So we opened up a separate bank account, and she gave me a budget each month beyond tithe and offerings. She gave me a budget each month to put money into, and I can only use that account to buy stuff for the church and to do stuff for the church. And I'm not some, specialty, some oddity. That's what most pastors that I know do. There are some greedy pastors who are bleeding the widows, but those are far in between. Those are the exceptions, not the norms. And I want to put that out there, that most pastors really have to work two jobs to support their families. Most pastors in the African-American community work two jobs to support their families. But that doesn't mean that we're doing a good job with our money or that we're making the most out of this institution known as the church. So I want to share this. Most church donations come from small. This is what this report that I put up on the screen shows. Most church, and I'm gonna put it up there again. Most church donations come from small to medium gifts. They also brought out, I'm just skipping through some of this. They've actually identified over 20 different points about it. About how churches give financially. And so I'm just kind of skip through real quick. Please forgive me for just getting this together now. And I want to skip down here and just read some statistics to you, and which is, come on now, I just had it a second ago. Here we go. The average church spent most of its money on personnel. That doesn't mean pastors, that means personnel. This is what it says. This is point number 18 on the link that I just shared with you. When finances are spent on average, 49% is on personnel and 23% is on facilities, 11% on mission, 10% on program, and 6% on dues. Evangelicals on average spend more on personnel, that's 51%, and less on facilities, 21%, compared with African-American Protestant churches that spend 23% of their budget on personnel and 25% on facilities. And listen, there's a whole lot more that I want to unpack here and that I want to talk about, but my director, my producer, is telling me that I need to start wrapping this up. But I want you to get that again. In the African-American Protestant churches, they only spend 23% of their budget on personnel and 25% on facilities. That's less than 50% of their money goes between personnel. And when we say personnel, we're not just talking about the pastor. You're talking about the musicians. You're talking about administrative assistants. You're talking about associate pastors as well as the lead pastor. So in the African American church, only 23% is actually going toward paying the pastor's salary. Now, does that mean we're being effective? I want to pick up here, because one of the strongest tools and one of the greatest gifts that God has given the Black family is the Black church. So I'm going to pick up here tomorrow on Sunday evening, talking a little more about the Black church. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the finances and where our greatest potential lies. We're going to really unbox that. So join me back for the discussion. Good to see you, Kenny and Jeannie. So glad that y'all are with me today. Join me back on Sunday as we continue this discussion and as we continue to unbox one of the greatest institutions that the African American community has ever known. That's the Black church. We'll talk about it a little bit more. I'll see you then. Have a great weekend.
Seasoned with Grace, Unboxed also provides healthy relationship training and leadership development for businesses, churches, and community organizations. For a free consultation to discuss your team's needs, please contact us at our website at swg-unboxed.org. That's swg-unboxed.org.